In this video, I want to share with you my top 3 strategies on how to set and even achieve your most ambitious goals as an entrepreneur. I want to start at the beginning. The very first step that we encounter as entrepreneurs, which is goal setting, is for 90% of us, and I will count myself into this category, or at least my past self, is something that we overlook and that we undervalue massively. By overlooking this crucial step in achieving our goals, by setting the right goals, we don't stand a chance to really accomplish our goals. And that is exactly why I'm making this video. I would have wished to hear this advice when I was beginning and starting my journey as an entrepreneur. I feel like it would have cut out so much time, energy, frustration from the journey. So let me start by giving you one of the most impactful and hard-learned lessons that massively changed the way I approach goals since then. And that was to learn to distinguish between input and output goals. Let's take a close look at what's the difference between those two and how you can leverage this knowledge. Output goals are the goals that you're most likely familiar with. Those are the goals that we normally pick when we think about goal setting. Think about creating a YouTube channel. Think about having a six-pack. Think about being a millionaire over the next weekend. Those are all goals that we may have picked in our past, which seem to be the classical way how we think about goals. But let me ask you a question. Can we actually guarantee the outcome, the output of the goal that we're currently formulating? Can you guarantee that a YouTube channel that you want to grow is successful or not? When you ask yourself this question, you will rapidly find out that there is no guarantee, because not all the variables are inside your own control. For example, creating a successful YouTube channel not only depends on your videos, it also depends on how people will receive your videos. If they feel like they get an additional value, and that is only touching the surface. So as you can see, this kind of goal can be very stressful. So the question is, what's the other option here? I'm glad that you asked. Input goals are totally opposite to the output goals, and instead of focusing on what we get out, we try to focus on what we put in. And therefore we can have 100% predictability if we can achieve those input goals or not, and we don't depend on external factors which aren't inside our control. So what would that mean practically? It would mean that instead of thinking about creating a successful YouTube channel, we would break it down to smaller actionable steps that we can define and that we can fulfill 100% on our own. Let's say posting a video once a week, posting on social media to promote your videos once a week. We are not only breaking it down, but we are limiting our input goals to milestones and goals that we can accomplish on our own, and that's very important. I even want to go a step further and give you an additional tip that really helped me to relieve stress in regards to goal setting, which is to think about your goals not as, especially your input goals, not as mini projects, but instead think about it in hours or in time slots. Now that we do know how important input goals are, let me give you my second strategy, which will massively help you to be more efficient at goal setting and streamlining the process for it. So when I did my research on how to set the right goals, I realized quickly that out there are millions of frameworks. I'm not saying that in order to stress you out and to think about I have to find the perfect framework for my specific goal, but instead I want you to think about find the framework that works for you, and just know that every framework that you use will be much better than none. One of the frameworks that I really liked is the SMART framework, which you can break down, as you can see, into specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely bound. All these parameters will help you in order to set some great input goals. But I want to go with you even a step further and go a bit deeper. I want you to understand that most likely your goal is linked to an idea or even a hypothesis, how we would call it in research, and that you should learn to formulate this hypothesis, which most likely is implicit, and switch it to something that is explicit. Just by doing that, we can later on prove it or disregard it. Let's get back to the example that we had earlier about creating the YouTube channel. And for me, creating a YouTube channel was always linked to this idea that If I give away free valuable information on the internet, more people will get to know me, therefore my outreach will be much higher than if I do it one-to-one. Therefore I have this hypothesis and I have my goal, which is to be a successful YouTuber. As you can see, those two things can be related, but it's not obligatory. So therefore I should be careful to evaluate after some time, let's say after 3 months, after 6 months, after 1 year, if my hypothesis, which is to reach more people, actually holds true, and if the people that I'm reaching actually want to work with me or not. So when you state your own goal, when you write it down, be specific about the hypothesis or the idea that is connected to the goal. Only by stating it, only by being explicit, you will have the ability to measure it and to prove it or to disregard it, which is exactly what we are doing in academia or in research. My last and final strategy that I want to give you, which may be the most important if you feel like you're doing everything right in your goal setting, but nevertheless you always have this feeling that after a few days you fall off the wagon, then this strategy is exactly for you, which is to know and to evaluate where you're currently on your transition curve as an entrepreneur. When I first saw the transition curve, I first of all felt relief, because I felt like at least I'm not the only one going through this up and down, which a lot of you may know. And the second realization that I had is that I don't have to be in this vicious cycle of feeling this euphoria in the beginning, this excitement, and then going rapidly into the informed pessimism when I do realize how messy and how much work I have to do in order to achieve the goal. Instead, I realized that if I hang on and keep going instead of switching from one goal to the next goal, I can reach the stage of informed optimism and therefore accomplish my goal. Of course, we know and we should understand that the work won't do it by itself, and we have to get the reps in, or we have to do whatever the task may be in order to resolve it. I want you to be cautious for one thing in particular. And this is when you take the transition curve and put it into a larger time frame. You can see we can have two options. Either we can have a trend which goes up, or we can have a trend which goes down. And as you can see, the different spikes, either going down or going up, can be misevaluated very rapidly. Which is to think, if you're in a trend which is going downhill, that every time you choose a new goal and you feel this uninformed optimism, which is a spike in dopamine, that you feel like you're generally going up, but instead what you're doing, you're gradually going down, down and down. Every time you switch from goal to goal without fulfilling it, you will notice that your baseline, your general motivation will drop and drop. Instead, what we want is we want to be on the other side. We want to have this trend which will leave us with more and more motivation. And we should realize and be cautious that even though we have a steady increase, there will be the times when we start our new goal that we become into the next phase of informed pessimism, where we realize that the task or the goal that we are setting for ourselves is even harder than we expected. But if we go through this period, if we hold on to our goals, we will see that after finishing our goal or after reaching our goal, the trend will always go upwards and we will have more and more motivation. To wrap it up, I want to say that in the past I massively underestimated the value of picking and setting the right goals as an entrepreneur. Not because goal setting is the end-all be-all solution for entrepreneurship. Instead, setting a clear goal will give you a direction. I feel like a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety that we have as entrepreneurs stems from not knowing what we should do today, tomorrow, the next week or the next month. I will leave you with this question. How will you implement this into your goal setting routine? Let's be honest. I know and you know that only by being active you will change something. And you can go on, you will hopefully learn something new. You will have the small dopamine hit, but nevertheless nothing will change. So will you be able to change? Will you be able to set a goal today? I hope so. Just one more thing. If you want to know where you're currently at in your goal setting and goal achievement pursuit, I created a free quiz where you will get some valuable insights on your current score, which will give you some actionable tips for you individualized. Just hit the link above, either here or here. And thank you for your attention. I will see you in the next video.